Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon to everyone who's joined us here in person and online. Welcome to the Iced Coffee series. The Iced Coffee series, which stands for Innovation, Creativity and Entrepreneurship, is a new series that we've launched. And we've had 3 episodes so far. This is a very special episode and our season finale. We're paying tribute to a very dear and special friend, mentor to each one of us present, and a strong believer in the ideology of CCIT, Dr. Amir Sharif, Assistant Professor Surgery, Advanced Laparoscopic and Bariatric Surgeon, Surgery Residency Program Director, and an incredible person. So a quick introduction to Dr. Asad Mian, Professor Dr. Asad Mian, Chairman Emergency Department and Director CCIT AKU. Hi, Dr. Asad.
Hello. Thank
How
you
are
for having me here. Did I have an option?
No, you don't. Good to have you here. So, Dr. Asad, I would like for you to tell people present with us about why you felt the need to have these sessions and why engage in conversations about the lesser explored areas of life. I know we've had 3 sessions so far, with one about your trip to Turkey and the link to Sufism and ICE, Innovation, Creativity, and Entrepreneurship, one on Bouvet, and one on being childlike. And this very one, the special one, will be on IKIGAI. So why feel the need?
Thank you for that great question, actually. So people should know that this is not scripted, by the way. Okay, so the more we get into these kinds of sessions, the less we feel the need for having a very clear-cut script to this, because I think that's part of the dynamic here as well, that we keep it raw and get into things of this nature that you've mentioned. The trip to Turkey was the first part of this, and then spoke about, you mentioned Bouvet, and then you mentioned being childlike, and today we're talking about Ikigai. Why was there a need to talk about these topics or ideas, explored areas? Because we've kind of started realizing that all of these things and many more things that we hopefully will get into subsequently in the new year as well are linked to ICE. Fun part is that these are not direct linkages. They're not overt. It's kind of subtle, and you scratch the surface, you explore, you probe, and you get under the, you get into it. When you start realizing and you make those connections yourself, and when you start connecting things which are putatively not connectable or connected, that's creativity at work. And so who is to say that no, your connections that you're making or your linkages or your synergies are inaccurate, right? It's for us to create meaning, and that also links into what we're talking about today as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think creativity is a journey, and we'll get into that, as the session progresses. So, what's interesting is when I was actually thinking about this specific episode, it's like life coming full circle. How we started with your trip to Turkey, how there's a special connection to Dr. Amir when it comes to Turkey, and all the things that we've discussed. And I know we'll get into further discussions, but, about exploring and finding purpose.
So yeah, what's the question there?
So it's a statement. It's not a question.
But good recap. Yeah.
Purpose.
So I just want to So I want to echo that, because yes, it's a comment, but it's very important, because the first session of the Iced Coffee series was about the trip to Turkey, or my trip to Turkey. But my trip to Turkey, partly it happened because it was a conference, and I ended up going to a different city, because most people end up going to Istanbul. This time around, I started off with Gaziantep. But Amir had been to Konya last year with his family, and we'll get more into that. And earlier this year, Amir and I had started talking about Rumi, and I had been exploring Rumi and Shams through the written word, through poetry. I'm not very much into poetry, but it was something I'd been trying to get into for years, exploring for years the mystical aspect of that kind of poetry or that kind of literature, the mystical union that's described for those kinds of dynamics. And so Amir was also a student of that. That's what I feel. This might be, I mean, I'm just using some words here. So I don't want people to assume that this is what he said. This is what I am stating based on the interactions that we had earlier this year. And so he told me about his trip to Konya and Cappadocia, which happened, I believe it was December of last year. In case I'm off the mark, then Amir's sons are right here with me, right next to me, and Amir's mother is right here. So thank you so much for being here. So they could correct me. Aisha Sharif is online. At least she told me that she will come online, and so she could put it in the chat box and let me know in case the dates were inaccurate. But still, the point is that Amir kind of was the inspiration for me to make sure that I go to Konya. Otherwise, I probably would not have gone to Konya. And I'm so glad that I went, because it was a transformative journey for me to Konya. Yeah.
So let's dissect your journey piece by piece and link it back to ICE.
And IKIGAI.
And IKIGAI eventually. Yes, of course, we'll get there. So, I'd really like you to talk about happiness. Let's start off with happiness. How would you define happiness?
Oh.
We want to know your definition. I know there's a book definition, but we really want to start deconstructing it and then wanting to know about your definition of it first. And then how do you think, or if you think it's important for creative pursuit or creative innovation? So it's a two-step question.
I thought I would have a ready answer to, okay, how do I define my happiness? And it's still a journey. And what I might tell you right now may not be the case just an hour from now, right? So, but I think happiness for me is really just being okay in the moment, just being fine, intent-wise or content. Content-wise, like a contentment, right? So yes, contentment, satisfaction, containment for me, right? Not being like kind of like this feeling that I'm kind of like spread thin, right? There's too much to do and I don't have the time, or I don't have the bandwidth or the capacity or the team or the funding or something like that. None of that. I mean, it doesn't mean all of that goes away. No, it's still there. But just having that moment of contentment, no matter what the actual situation is. And that's happiness for me. Happiness for me is also thinking about my family members, my wife, my children, my parents, my siblings, my cat at home, Luna. If Luna's watching, hi Luna. I don't think she's watching though. But so that's happiness for me. Just be connected. Just kind of like spending time with Luna early in the morning when I'm the only one who's awake. And she has a very different interaction dynamic, and she actually comes up. And so I'm just describing, and those are moments of happiness, of intense happiness, because there's no there's no expectation, there's no outcome that I'm asking for or hoping for. It's just being there, bearing witness somehow, and then just letting it be.
So being present in the moment.
Being present in the moment, yeah.
And enjoying moments, because a lot of time we link so many things to happiness. Oh, if we do such and such thing, it will give us happiness. Right. And happiness, I feel, eventually sort of becomes an idea in our mind, right? So really breaking it down to moments, and moments where you're present, and it could be with your family members, loved one, with your cat, and how you enjoy and savor that moment, right? So it's really contentment in that small moment. So
may I just expand a bit on that? So happiness for me were the interactions that I had with Amir. So either of us would like, and these weren't several interactions. I'm talking about a handful of interactions, and I can count on my fingers this year alone. So they were probably maybe over a course of 3-4 months, maybe we met 3 times perhaps. So 3 or 4, but it was the quality of those interactions. It was just being okay with what the situation was, whether we were frustrated about our work, about our professional work, about a personal lives, whatever, or somewhere in, or none of that. It was just being in the moment and being with a like-minded person. जिसके साथ आपको explanation की need नहीं है. You don't have to explain. Both of us connected really well. We spoke about Rumi, we spoke about Kanya, we spoke about philosophy. We did not talk about medicine. We did not talk about hardcore research or some of the work that we had been doing project-wise. So those were happy moments. Those were just being present.
And you really explored the lesser explored areas of
And
life.
yeah, we were doing that without really realizing that that's what was happening.
Absolutely. And I think the place really didn't matter where you were, because if I'm not wrong, you met at Chai Dhabas.
Well, that was that was one morning breakfast that he actually got hold of me, and I'm so not like able to kind of break away from habit and then just do this. So he managed to kind of get me out of my office. I wasn't on call, that's why I could. And he said, "Chalo, raksha mein baithte hain." So I'm like, what? Raksha mein? Main raksha mein to AQ mein in saalon mein पहली दफा हम लोग उधर जाके यूनिवर्सिटी गेट से बाहर जाके रक्षा में बैठ के सिंधी मुस्लिम जाके चाय पी नाश्ता and then that was lovely. It was about an hour, and he went to his OR. I came back to my office, and so that was that one time. So it wasn't scores of moments, right? But we used to meet for coffee or lunch in the cafeteria, in the new private wing, sorry, in the restaurant or in one of our offices, and just talk about things. Yeah.
So the place really doesn't matter. Yeah. It's the quality of interaction.
It was the quality,
for happiness, for creativity, for exploring those, new avenues. So linking back happiness to creativity and a creative journey, how important do you think is happiness for creative innovation?
So I've explored that connection. I think happiness or contentment, or whatever way you want to define it, whether it's contentment, containment, satisfaction, just being in the moment, mindfulness. It's important because when you have too many conditions applied to whatever it is that you're doing, and the kind of work that we do, and I'm talking about creative innovation here, right? So creativity and innovation and entrepreneurship require us to be very experimental in certain ways, okay? And you don't know what outcome you're going to get, because it doesn't matter. I think the outcome doesn't matter because you learn from the outcome, whether it's a good outcome or a bad outcome or a neutral outcome, it doesn't matter. You learn and you improve and you do better that way. So if you're content or contained or happy, quote unquote, then you are able to function, keep going from whatever the outcome has been to your experimentation or your prototype, right? Because prototyping circles hote hain, cycles hote hain, right? हम लोग सीखते हैं और सिखाते हैं ये. It's constant prototyping, iterating. So those are your, and you keep improving. So it's not linear. It's actually, it's cyclical and it's improvement. So if you're content, then you will keep going.
Right, because I think the prototyping and testing phase can get quite frustrating if you're not getting the desired results.
Exactly.
Right, so you've envisioned something and you're not getting what you want, and then there's frustration because you failed.
Unhappiness, right? So if you let that get to you, then it just kind of makes life really difficult for you to keep moving as an innovator and entrepreneur or a creativist or a person who likes creating.
Right. So an important tool is to be content and to keep on trying and to keep on repeating the process if need be. So now we're going to delve into, something that Dr. Amir also believed, and something we talk about so much is, linking purposeful life to a happier living. I know you've written about it, but I'd really like you to expand on it, and then we'll get into purpose. So we've talked about happiness and then a happier living and creativity. Now linking purposeful life to a happier living.
So Amir had heard me talk about IKIGAI, right? So let me just get into IKIGAI, right? So that was that connection because I had talked about it in a session I don't know, like a few years prior to when Amir then invited me to talk about it at the Department of Surgery Grand Rounds. And so because he liked the concept, and Ikigai is linked to happiness.
Absolutely.
So it kind of helped me or forced me to try to understand those connections and synergies as well. So I'm very thankful to him because of his interest, that kind of that got me to put it together and create a presentation around it. And then I presented it to the Department of Surgery, and hopefully they learned something useful. I certainly learned that some putatively arcane topic like happiness, and I use and say that for a reason, because we don't talk about these things. We want to talk about hardcore things, research, data, and grants, and actual research questions. But these other things, areas, perhaps in certain ways, are much more important. Particularly now with what's ongoing, which is chaotic living. So I really appreciated his interest so that I could present it, could package it as a presentation. That became the content for an article then, for a newsletter that I I think Sidra has put some links to some of those
articles.
Basic, very simple articles. So in pursuit of creative happiness was an article based on that Grand Round presentation to the Department of Surgery. Then that article became the outline for a chapter in the book MedDrag that we published last year. So these are all these connections. So one thing led to another, and it wasn't that I had thought about it. Okay, this is what it's going to come out to, but it just happened, and the idea or the concept snowballed for me, and I believe it did for others as well. Ikigai really connected with individuals, and we could get into Ikigai.
We'll just get into Ikigai. So for people, I'll explain the concept of Ikigai. Ikigai is basically a concept that says, something to live for, reason for being, joy and goal of living, or in simpler terms, just doing stuff that makes you happy. Now, Ikigai, one could say, is found at the interface of life's passion, vocation, and mission. So that sweet spot, your joy or your reason for being, or doing stuff that makes you happy. So I'm going to ask you about Dr. Amir's view, but first I would like to know your opinion or your view of, what do you think about finding purpose in life? Like, do you think it's important to find purpose in life? I know it's a vague question, but I really wanted to get it out there.
What do you think? Do you think it's important? No, and I don't, so the point I'm trying to make here is, I think what the point I'm trying to make here is that I think it really depends on the individual.
Right.
Okay. So if you are asking me, then I would say yes, it has been important for me to probe that question: what is my purpose, or what is my meaning, or reason for being? So because it is important to me, and I am probing that question, I am seeking or searching. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, if I may. And so it kind of keeps escalating for me, and it's great because that's what I want, and I like, and I need as well. Now, is it important for everybody? I don't know. It depends on the individual. Maybe it's not a question that some folks need to get into, or maybe it depends on your stage in life.
True.
Right? So yeah, so it's important for me, and that's the simplest answer I can give you.
That's fine. And I also believe, so there's not like one solid answer, like, have you found purpose?
Yeah.
I think, when people ask you, I think it's again a journey.
It's a journey.
I don't think there's a yes or no reason. Maybe one day you could decide you found your purpose, and the next day you could decide, okay, maybe it doesn't work for me. Maybe there's more I need to do, or there's something else that I'm looking for, or there's still some seeking left.
Yeah.
In,
For sure. And I think that's happened to me as well. And then I think that happens with others as well, that um, um, what you think your purpose is, um, do you need somebody to endorse it for you or justify it to you? No, I think it's your own um, seeking and searching and coming up with an answer for yourself. That's what I understand. That's what I believe in as well. But then life events happen. You keep exploring, or if somebody keeps exploring and expressing and wandering and wondering, and so your purpose could evolve as well.
True.
Right? And so I think, and that's what I like as well, that I don't want to feel limited as well. That okay, this is my purpose, and this is going to be my purpose for the rest of my life. Right. So I think having that flexibility keeps helping me to be more explorative as well, exploratory.
True. True. So, it's a journey and you can keep on exploring, and it doesn't have to be a very black and white answer. It can be gray. You can keep on, it can change. And life's events or other factors do tend to influence it, like your purpose, the definition of what your purpose is in life. So I'd really like to know, and I'm really intrigued to know, what were Dr. Amir's views on it?
So
he shared.
We didn't get into a very involved discussion about Ikigai. Conceptually, he got it, he understood it, and that was, I think, that was that connection, and what I mentioned earlier as well, that he wanted me to talk about it. Happiness, creative happiness, Ikigai, finding your own purpose, and then pivoting as well. So all of those things. I knew that he was getting into some kind of like art, designing, I wouldn't call it calligraphy. Perhaps Aisha would be able to explain better exactly what that was, but it was something to do with just finding happiness in those kinds of pursuits as well. And Amir used to play the guitar, if I'm not mistaken. He loved music. We did talk about music on and off, kinds of songs that he listened to, and so those were also periods where that he was based on if people are friends of Amir on Facebook or. So they would have, Aisha and Amir's, they would see the photographs of the family trips as well, right? So I think that was another thing. They loved traveling, and the kids were with them, and so that was something that I also kind of gauged as well. That there was something, there was happiness there as well in those moments that they were together. And when we get into the slideshow,
we will get into it shortly. So, and you touched briefly upon it, but I'd really like you to expand. So, we've discussed purpose and happiness, and then linking it all back to the other philosophies that we've discussed, like Stoicism or Taoism. How do you what are your opinions on it? Or do you think they're all linked? They're all somewhere, somehow leading to one understanding either contentment and one, or helping one explore purpose?
I think you've said it well. I think there is a unifying theme, perhaps, and synergies do exist. That's what my feeling is. I've delved into. I've read about Stoicism. You mentioned. I've read about Taoism, contemporary Sufism. Ikigai is a Japanese concept, but at the core of it, it's very synergistic with the Taoism and Sufism as well, because you're talking about contentment,
right?
So I think it makes so much sense as well, because the human condition is the human condition, whether you're in the global north or the global south, or east पे हैं या west में हैं, आप eastern philosophy को follow कर रहे हैं या western philosophy को follow कर रहे हैं. I think humans are humans, and so कहीं ना कहीं तो वो converge करेगा. और core मेरा ख्याल है कि humans की core probably वही है. Right. That's what I'd like to think.
Maybe.
But I think there are definite synergies based on and I'm not a philosopher from that perspective. It's just something of interest and years of kind of like
Getting into
reading about these things and writing about them,
Right.
which has helped me.
So another very interesting concept, or another thing that we discuss or talk about, is something I'd like you to shed light on, which I personally thought was very interesting: meaningfulness in meaninglessness.
Yeah.
And I know there's a link to earlier things that we've discussed, but and deciding what to give meaning to.
Yeah.
Right. So those statements. So how does one do that?
Okay.
We'd really like to know, we'd really like to know what's worked for you, or
Yeah.
if you've explored.
Right.
So meaninglessness, meaningfulness in meaninglessness.
Meaningfulness in meaninglessness,
It's a tongue
right?
twister.
So, and that's a beautiful journey in itself, and it's a journey again. I don't think it's just a black or white kind of a destination. It's a journey. You keep learning within that concept. And how did I come across it?
Right.
I'd read about it before, but not to the extent and not through the synergizing effect till Amir, actually. So going back to Amir, right? So here's the ring that I'm wearing particularly for today's session, and it's what it's got inscribed on it is Heech. And Amir was a huge proponent of Heech, I believe, because he had one or two rings, but one in particular that he showed me when we earlier on in our conversations, when he talked about his trip to Konya and Cappadocia, and he asked me if I knew about Heech. I'm like, no, I don't know. But then when he started explaining it, I said, yeah, of course, it makes sense. I've read about it through a different context, right? But I did not realize that Rumi had written about Heech in his poetry as well. And then I read the poetry, and then and this was happening very interestingly when I was traveling across Turkey.
Interesting.
And I was reading Nietzsche.
Yeah.
And Nietzsche, for those of you not familiar, Nietzsche was a German philosopher and social critic. And his influence on 20th century philosophy, or intellectual thought process, which has then gone into the 21st century as well, is unparalleled from a Western perspective. But there are, like we were talking about, synergies. There's such amazing synergies, I believe, to Eastern philosophy such as Sufism and Taoism as well. So Nietzsche talked about nothingness, which is Heech. So Heech, by the way, right? I don't know if I mentioned, but Heech is nothingness. Essentially, it's just that concept. And how do you define it? It's nothingness. It's just emptiness, perhaps, but it's not just a unidimensional, one-dimensional kind of emptiness. I think it's a beautiful concept of emptiness, that there is emptiness or nothingness, and we're created out of nothingness, and we go back to nothingness. So if you consider this whole universe or multiverse to be a void, or to be the void, so who are we right now, this moment? We've come out of that, and we're having this interaction. So this is the spark, what I consider to be the spark of life, right? So individual, collective dynamics, jo hai, this is that spark, and we will all have our lives, I believe, and there is a time that's mukarrar for us. I do believe in that, and so we'll pass on, right? And so that's beautiful. Why should anybody think, or why should I think like, oh, I want to be around forever and ever? No, actually. So that's that nothingness, right? And so Nietzsche says or discusses in his literary corpus that nothingness is everythingness. So once that connection is made in your head or in your heart, then you start realizing, yaar, ki haan, actually nothing hai, nothingness hi hai, for meaninglessness ho gayi, right? Lekin that is meaningful because it's everything. And you start taking things not for granted then. आपको पता है कि आपका टाइम कम ही है, तो आप अपने टाइम को यूजफुली फिर स्पेंड करें.
How do you utilize it better?
How do you utilize the time that's being given to you is your choice.
And how do you start appreciating?
How do you appreciate it? What do you do with those choices in the brief time that you have on this earth, right? And so I think it's really important because it is tied into Nietzsche's nihilism as well. Because if you think, if you agree with nihilism, which is like life objectively has no purpose, has no meaning, and it's scary, right? Because अगर कुछ भी नहीं है meaning इसका और ये सब कुछ का कोई meaning नहीं है, तो आप इसको meaning दे दें, तो वो existentialism की तरफ आपको लेके जा रहा है कि there's a meaning, there's a purpose, but then nobody's going to tell you कि हाँ ये तुमने सही meaning दिया इसको. Why do you need somebody to tell you this is your own thing, right? And so creating your own meanings, that's what the topic, the flyer, and it says purposeful living / creating meaning. Because that's how it's not just one thing. I think it's linked to then the next step, which is creating your own meaning and being okay with that and being in the moment. Because वो फिर होता है कि oh मेरा meaning जो मैंने दिया है इसको वो सही है
is that
और
okay?
मेरे outcomes नहीं आ रहे हैं तो फिर से आप frustration में, right? So फिर, but that's not the point. It's being okay with who you are, with what you've been given. And yes, it doesn't mean कि आपके goals नहीं है, aspirations नहीं होंगे, because obviously young people हैं, and like, well, I'm a dinosaur, but goals and aspirations किसके नहीं होते हैं, right? होने चाहिए, मैं ये नहीं कह रहा हूँ नहीं होने चाहिए, लेकिन it's how do you get going with these things without becoming a basket case, without becoming anxious and depressed, because this world is a hard world as well. But yet it's a beautiful world.
Agreed.
Right?
And that's essentially why we touched on happiness to begin with, or contentment. So we started this talk with contentment, keeping contentment in mind, then purpose and journey, and then discussing ikigai. So it's where all of that combines, right? Your goals, purpose, how do you get to your goals, the journey, be content.
And one more point, right? So I think because you mentioned the meaninglessness, right? And finding meaning in that meaninglessness. So I think that also is linked.
True.
And I don't think these are, if I were to mind map this, right? I certainly don't think of this as a linear process. Like, happiness hai, phir ikigai aayega, or linear hai, or ikigai se ek arrow ja raha hai to hitch, or something like that. This is an interactome.
It is.
Interactors hai, confounders hai, and that's the beauty of it.
Agreed.
And it's non-linear.
Agreed. And I read this article of yours, and I really would like to share with our viewers and people present here. So, heat, nothingness, you described it as one's life being a spark in the void.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's not me. I mean, there are others who've said this, so I guess I might. I can't take credit for any of these things because I think I'm merely just kind of like I'm blessed that others before me have already gone through this process and explained it beautifully.
Right.
And I think it's for others to also realize, other people to realize that अगर आपको ढूंढना है, explanations चाहिए, they are out there.
They exist.
Content does exist. But coming across it through your own experiences is beautiful.
It's unique. So, one's life being a spark in the void, and I look at it as, you being a part of the grand scheme of the universe. Like, so you do play a role. So, we spoke about your trip to Turkey and the connection with Dr. Amir. I would really, so there was this thing that you mentioned, Master Ugwe used to say.
He used to say that a lot, actually.
That there are no accidents.
There are no accidents. And I think he would have loved to have taken 100% credit for saying that. मैंने बोला है ये सबसे पहले. But he used to say that. And it was such a he was such a natural at saying it. He would say it at the right time. There was no wrong time when he would say that. And he'd say that quite a lot, actually. And I think a lot of people who interacted with Amir were familiar that he used to say that.
Right.
Or
So
maybe he was saying that just to me. I don't know. But I'm sure they're like,
no, we do
he
have
had
someone
this,
in the
so
audience.
Aisha sitting over
Yeah.
here. So the other Aisha, various Aishas. So, he had this connection to people, and I'd love to, I want to mention it here. He made people feel special,
That's true.
and he
And that's
made
a great
people
quality.
feel heard. So I think that was a great quality. He was a very good listener.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't know if, yeah.
So I think, the way, like, why I brought that line was because all these things that we've discussed, and so we've spoken about the good things, life being a journey. What we've not shed light on is, there might be obstacles and hurdles,
Of course.
right? And failures.
Mhm.
So how do you address them? Even I think looking at them and thinking there are no accidents, maybe
Mm.
they happened for a reason.
Mhm.
If you tie that into whatever we've discussed so far, purpose and journey,
Mm.
I think that
Yeah,
is a
so
comforting concept.
it is, right? From that perspective, um, exceedingly difficult to practice, though.
Agreed.
But I think if you keep at it, it becomes easier
Easy.
over time, because we in our life prototyping, iterating constantly, right? So, and then you realize that there is no mistake. You're learning constant. I mean, if you're able to reflect and learn from something, and then
improve,
and then re-implement and improve, right? But I think ये आपकी अपनी realization होती है. आपको कोई और बताएगा कि वो कोई और बोलेगा नहीं तुम तो improve नहीं हुए हो. But ये आपकी अपनी एक वो होती है. I think, and you don't need to ask somebody else.
Right. I think, yeah. So when we talk about purpose and journey, I don't think कि इसमें, you need a lot of validation.
No, I don't think so.
External validation, because,
I mean, I think as long as you kind of like, I keep repeating that it's iterative.
Right.
ये journey है, और आपको पता चल जाता है, समझ आ जाती है, और आप फिर करते रहते हैं. आप किसी और को, आपको अनाउंस करने की नीड नहीं होती है. लाउड स्पीकर पे खड़े होके कहीं पे चीखे मार के कि ये मेरा पर्पस है और ये मुझे करना है. You don't need to do that, because you just know and you keep at it.
It's an individual thing.
And things change as well, so it's okay. It's fine.
True.
No pressure.
Must discover purpose, must find purpose.
Or create it.
Or create it, of course, or create it. So, few points I picked, and I think because, so since Iced Coffee series is, we believe a message that we put out there for innovators and entrepreneurs. So, when we talk about all these things, it's
recognition of time.
Yes, we are.
Because we really want people.
And we have a lot of questions. We'll just get into those.
Yeah.
So, an innovator and entrepreneur is spiritual. And these 4 points I came across in MedJack. We've written about them, and I thought it's a good opportunity to share. So, how? Because an innovator and entrepreneur observes from different perspectives to find opportunity, to create room. They see failure as an opportunity to learn, right? Everything that we've spoken about so far. So to iterate or reiterate. And then understanding that change is constant. So it's a constant thing. Change will keep on happening. So the sooner you get used to it, or the sooner you start utilizing it, the better it is for your journey. And then using what they know to find out what they don't know. Yeah. I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah, that's.
I think so. Those 4 points I really wanted to put across and out there for our entrepreneurs and innovators. Without further ado, we do have a slideshow. Hussein, can you please get the slideshow? We do have a collection of pictures that we've had. We'll just get into that, and then we'll start addressing questions.
Yeah, we'll get to the questions.
Because I really
and we'll kind of just quickly go through the.
Right.
So, yeah, can people see?
Yes.
Okay. So we will just before we get going, these. Oh, actually, I don't have, because it's kind of going on.
Slideshow.
It's a slideshow. That's fine. So I would really like to thank Aisha Sharif for sharing these photographs. keeping it relevant to the theme of the session today. So most of these photographs that you'll see are from Konya and Cappadocia. Yaya, would you like to come join us here? It's okay. We're not going to get you to say anything. But in case somebody, you want to say hello to our audience?
Hello.
Yaya's right over here. Isa, do you want to come say hi? No. That's fine. Okay, so yeah, we'll just let the photos do their own talk.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Yahya and I'm Amir's son. So in the winters of 2021, we guys all went to Turkey. And even though Baba didn't really have much of an interest in Konya, he only went as a gift for my mother, who had always wanted to go there. So we entered Hazrat Rumi's Mazar, but Baba came out a changed man. In there, he wept so much, and we had never really seen him like that. And he had felt a really big spiritual connection with Allah and Hazrat Rumi. After that, he was just researching about Hazrat Rumi and he wanted to know more about his religion. And he would spend his time buying rings or buying books about Islam. And he found like a new purpose and meaning to his life. And he would go to the masjid and the mazars multiple times. And over there, he would recite his 5 daily prayers, even though it was freezing weather. And even when he came back, he was a completely changed man.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yaya. Yeah, so we made Yaya create a brief video message.
Yeah.
Although you could have actually said it out live.
I could have.
You could have.
Yeah.
Okay, you go back.
Thank you.
Put him on the spotlight. So these are lovely photographs. Cappadocia, hot air balloons.
We can let
And,
this
and
one
the
stay.
classic Amir grin. I don't know if it's a grin or a smile or what.
Right. So we do have a student here with us, Aisha Akbar. Aisha, why
Aisha,
don't you
you,
join us?
Come join us. Aisha Akbar. Okay, I'll let you introduce yourself.
No, you can go ahead. It's okay. So, I mean, thank you for inviting me.
Let's
Yeah.
hear, who are you first?
Okay. So, I'm a final year medical student at AKU. I was one of Dr. Hamid Sharif's SOSIS mentees. I was honored to have one of that role. We work closely together through surgery interest group, through our like shared interest in music, shared interest in surgery. So he was actually one of the first people to tell me that, you know, you're going to be a surgeon and you have all those qualities. And I'm sorry, I'm finding myself quite emotional today because he was one of my biggest sort of supports in this system. And like you said, you know, he made you feel heard, he made you feel important, and he made you feel like he cared. And this was not just for any one student, but for his entire student body. So I don't think I want to talk much about myself. I'd rather kind of talk about Dr. Amir, and that's why I just want to thank you for the opportunity to like be here. So you know, Yaya shared this, you shared this, spoke about Konya and you spoke about his love for Rumi. And we found ourselves, you know, hosting the 7th ASC together just this February this year. And for somehow we spoke about synergies, IKIGAI, and that lesson I did, you know, later on we found that it came from you, but he started imparting that lesson to all of his mentees. Said that, you know, this is your realm, this is your circle, and you guys kind of should be practicing IKIGAI. And it came up at multiple times, whether that was applying for electives or, you know, doing the conference. So at the conference, you know, we and ended up being that Rumi kept coming up. And this was without us knowing that, you know, Dr. Amir had been looking into Rumi or had been researching into it. So I still remember at the conference, my counterpart and I, Ahmed Bashir and I, we were like, you know, this conference should have some meaning and it should have some Eastern references because, you know, medicine, hikmat, and all of these themes should be coming up into surgical research. That was the theme. So I ended up, you know, saying this quote, and it goes like this. It says, "Oh soul, you worry too much. You have seen your own strength. You have seen your own beauty. You've seen your golden wings. Of anything less Why do you worry? And as I was saying that, and Ahmed was right there, Dr. Amir was saying it word for word, alongside. And we were like, how do, like, and he asked us, where did you guys come up with this? Or how did you guys include this in this session? And so we told him that, we'd been looking at these references, and both of us kind of also look up to Rumi. So that's how we included it. And really innocently, we asked, do you know about this? It's like, of course I know about it, because at that point he had those rings, and he'd been talking to all of us about finding a greater purpose and a greater meaning. I think it just ties in so well. But I think from that moment onwards, it was a defining point to know that Dr. Amir, even though he so humbly introduced himself as, hi, I'm Dr. Amir, I'm a surgeon, he was much more than that. He was a philosopher, a thinker, a person who had a deep appreciation for humanness, and that kind of translated in his clinics, in his the way he put study strips on his patients, because it wasn't just about the superficial aspect of it should look good or this should have my name on it, but it was about caring. It was really about doing things the right way. And so many things that you said resonated. And again, it just brings me back to synergy, because he didn't use a loudspeaker. He didn't sort of, claim credit for a lot of things, but he went on about things in a passionate way. And that's what was so inspirational. We didn't interact every day. We didn't get to meet with him on a very frequent basis. But whenever we did, we left with a lesson, and we left with something that inspired us to do more. So, something that he was such a big proponent of was passion. And, I so wish that he was still around to look at us, take that legacy forward. But what we can do and what we will do is really the lessons he imparted, they live with us forever at each stage and point. There's just so many things that we didn't. So this was my individual experience. But then, the more you hear about it, I heard from you, I heard from my colleagues, I heard from so many people around that he'd done these little things. And you just feel lucky that you got to know him. And for that, I actually wanted to thank Aisha and his mother and his children, because a lot of the lessons that he imparted, he told us that they came from you. Like he said that my mother taught me this, and this is why I'm this way. Or that something, interestingly enough, he didn't care about glory or fame. He didn't care about finances, and he always attributed that to Aisha, his wife. He said that because he said that, if you're looking to have a career in surgery, then those are not the right reasons for you to be pursuing this career. Those are not the right reasons for you to be, going into anything at all. So now, whether it's me pursuing surgery or any of my artistic pursuits, that always resonates. That the dunyavi cheezein are not of material. So I felt like we knew all of you guys from a long while ago. And we wish we'd met you in different circumstances earlier as well. But again, thank you so much for, making him the way he was, or, letting him be a part of our lives as well. Because I think to him, you guys were the most important, but he made everyone feel just as important. Yeah. So there's just too much to say, but just glad to share that aspect with all of you, that it's amazing. He inspired his colleagues, his students, like it made me want to do more. There were sometimes I just emailed me like, do you have any cases for this week, and can we sort of schedule? I want to learn as much. So he said, yeah, I have about 4 students, but if you want to join the Forge or you want to join the army, then sure, like, you can come in. So I would patiently wait my turn, and they'd be like, okay, this person's going to scrub in now. But during that time, he never made me feel like I was in a corner or I was not his student. He always acknowledged that presence. He spoke about music to all of us. In fact, I think my favorite moment in AKU is attributed to him because we were able to call Saman Ahmed this February, and Dr. Ahmed Sharif was like a huge fan of Junoon. So he got to converse with him directly, and I had worked with Junoon. So for me, it was like combining two passions, like medicine and music. And he's the one who gave me the opportunity to do that, made it possible. So, there were all of these little things that kind of still stick with all of us. They stick with me, and they will continue to stick. I hope that personally I can implement whatever lessons he taught me, and then keep that cycle going. Because really, and we spoke a lot about mentorship, because I had asked him to be my mentor, and initially he was like, no, I'm not that great. I don't think I don't think I should be anyone's mentor at that point. And I was like, but there's a lot that I learned. So if you will allow. And it always ended up being that mentorship is bi-directional. So
it is.
I wasn't just learning from him. I felt like he was learning, and it was a vice versa sort of a dynamic. And it didn't need too much, it just needed like the synergy, the commitment, and the passion. It didn't need any sort of, like, how do I put it straight? It didn't need too much effort. And I was refraining from saying that because there was a lot of effort and meaning that was put into it, but it didn't need, it wasn't a booj. It wasn't like, oh my God, I'm really scared of approaching him, or what will he say if I fail? In fact, he allowed me to fail. And being allowed to fail was the easiest thing, because when we were switching careers, or when I spoke to you about, whether it is that I should take something lighter or do surgery, it was an easy conversation. I think it's always been an easy conversation. So I think the times that I approached Dr. Amir most was times of difficulty, and rather than, pretending like everything is
okay,
everything is perfect. And all of these things that you spoke about today somehow like beautifully interconnected. That there are no accidents, the being allowed to fail, the finding happiness, being true to yourself, and defining your own meaning. And obviously, these are things that it took time to recognize as well. These are things that a lot of us kind of found out after his passing on as well. But I feel that all of us are in the same sort of on the same page about him, that he was a great individual, a great father, a great husband, a great son, and a great mentor. And I'm just lucky because the way I think about it is that you have your parents, you have your family, and then for me, you have your ustads, your teachers. So Dr. Amir Smith was my ustad, he was my teacher. So it's like that, ek darja hota hai, and that's what I would attribute to him. So yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Beautifully said. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. You can keep sitting with us.
Okay.
It's okay. So if there's
questions,
well, there were comments in the chat space.
there's and I can't read, but
It's okay, I'll read them. It's okay. So there's Nuru Sabah saying, what I understand is that Dr. Asad is referring to the hedonic type, not eudaimonic of happiness. Is that so? I think it's eudaimonia.
no, I was talking about eudaimonia.
Yeah, I think it's eudaimonia.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to, eudaimonia, not hedonism.
Yes.
But
So
but yeah, jisko bhi khushi mil rahi hai, bhaiya nahi hai.
and then Asma said, Heat refers to nothingness because God creates everything from nothing, and refers to Allah who gives meaning to everything from nothing. And then, oh, there's a question. Wait. So Nida is thanking us for an enlightening conversation. Personally, she's saying, I've been struggling to find my purpose, passion for a few years now. And I've realized the more I struggle, the further I feel away from finding it. What advice would you, since you have more experience in the aspect, give to people who are struggling like me? This is Nida saying.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think if one feels pressured or is struggling, then perhaps letting it be, you know. So um, the more you kind of struggle in this aspect, I think it probably becomes, let it just naturally or organically come to you. And then so सही है, अभी नहीं समझ आ रही है तो just do your thing.
Don't force it.
Don't force it. Yeah. I think the more you try to force something, and the opposite tends to happen, right? And I mean, you just like, you know, at times, you know, this happens, right? कि आपने अब किसी चीज को laterally approach करते हैं, तो it tends to work better versus directly kind of, you know, um, hitting your head against a wall versus like lateral approach, right? And some things tend to happen. And why does it happen? And then Wu Wei is the action of non-action. So there is something to be said, a lot to be said about not forcing outcomes, just letting things be, and they tend to have their own way of working out.
True.
And purpose is like that, I believe. Yeah. So आप force करेंगे तो समझ नहीं आती है, but आप let it be.
So, you know, even purpose and even creativity, you can't force creativity.
I don't think so. I think you can practice it. Rehearse करें या like practice करें, obviously, because अगर आप कोई चीज repeat करेंगे तो you do improve. But force, I agree.
But you know, you can't force it. Nahi aa raha, it's okay. I think it's about understanding that and not getting frustrated.
Ehsan had kind of, Ehsan Sharif had reached out to me, and so he wanted to say something. So Ehsan, please go ahead, unmute yourself.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saab. Can you hear me?
Ji, we can.
First of all, thank you so much, and assalamu alaikum everybody.
Fine.
My name is Ehsan Sharif. Amir Sharif was my first cousin, and I mean, I never thought I'm going to do this, you know, for someone who's younger to me 4 years, and he was my he was closest to me in the family because his father and my father were real brothers and they were really good friends. So, you know, normally it happens in a family when आपके दोनों इस तरह होते हैं तो एक उसकी reflection होती है, you start, you know, loving your that. तो इस तरह तो in the childhood we were like really good friends. On the weekends I remember, it's a long time. I mean, so but we used to play around. I'm just telling you things because I would try to relate it to something which Amir, as an elder, like in, you know, as an in the doctor, he really displayed that. He was very simple also at that time. He was like, first of all, at that time, there was no gadgets and stuff like that normally kids use these days. So it was simple games and simple stuff. So he was simple, he was humble, he was, you know all this. Yeah, you know, all of you have, you know, spent time with him. So you know how he was. So it was really, you know, when this thing happened on 11th October, you know, I don't know what to say, but the thing which I want to just highlight in few minutes, highlight or, you know, share my feeling that I feel so much honored and privileged that being associated with Amir Sharif, that, you know, that, you know, he did so many things good in this world within the short span of time. And I mean, you know, it could take you ages to do stuff like that. And I mean, I'm really sorry I'm losing my speech because so I feel so honored, you know. I just pray to Allah that, you know, इस तरह की अच्छी चीज़ें मैं भी उसका बड़ा भाई हूँ लेकिन कर लूँ. एक दो चीज़ें मैं इसके जाने के बाद बहुत नोटिस की because alhamdulillah summa alhamdulillah I was honored to, you know, lead this janaza prayers in that Masjid Fatima. And if any of you had a chance to be over there, it was a crowded scene. It wasn't a normal scene. I mean, you normally go to janazas and masjids, but it was jam-packed. And Imam Saab himself was, you know, he asked me, who was this guy? I told him, you know, he was a doctor and Khan. So the point I'm trying to tell you is that, you know, I just want to share a few things which probably helped me and people over here, which I've learned from Amir. So there are like one or two things. I won't take much of your time, but I started to, he was, as I told you, in school time, he was like my, I used to tell him to tell people he's my real brother because I didn't have a brother. So I used to tell people, this is my real brother. And people thought, कि ये इसका सगा भाई है, छोटा भाई है. And we used to resemble also in at that times, because. So finally he had to go to, after MBBS, he went to Europe and then US and everybody. So we फिर उनकी माशाल्लाह शादी और सारी चीजें. So off and on we used to get interact because interaction come over. I was also very busy with my career and stuff. So when I heard that Amir is coming back to Pakistan, so I was shocked and surprised and happy. I said, I mean, why is he coming back? After being studying at the Yales of this world, what's this? What is it for him to, come back to Pakistan? I mean, you know that, I don't go into details. So, but I told my mom, it's a very good news, but why is he coming back? Well, I so much so कि मैंने I tried to contact कि किसी तरह उसकी details, flight details मालूम हो जाए, लेकिन उस ज़माने में थोड़ा सा वो issue था phone का, तो वो I could not, कि मैं airport से pick कर लूँ, and like that I was so enthusiastic and my brother's coming back. Finally started work फलाना. On the very first dinner it was, I remember on his return, I asked him when I got the first chance to speak to him कि यार ये क्या, what was it about? Why are you in Pakistan? So I mean, all Amir is उसका style simple में. He just told me while eating and said कि यार खामोश up है, तो I can recall everything. He just smiled, a sweet smile he had. Allah Akbar. And he said, I said, I thought, I should lead the talk. I said, because मतलब लोग नहीं मिल रहे, मतलब I knew him from childhood, तो मैंने कहा शायद ऐसी कोई बात होगी, families and stuff and brotherhood, इस तरह की कोई चीज. तो कहता yes. So he said yes because he was the I don't know about the 11 years of Aga Khan, but the person Amir, I know he was a man with little words but strong words, strong impression, not very talkative person, but that's why I probably I was so talkative, so मेरे साथ मौका नहीं मिलता बात करने का. I don't know what was that, but he just smiled and said yes. And then he said one sentence. He said, for all this meal, वो सारी family dinner था, तो सब लोग मिल रहे थे. I tell you the real thing which I've never discussed or shared with my family, with my mom I'm very close to. The first thing came to my mind, said, yaar Amir, come on, don't give me this. I did not say to him, but I could not absorb this. For this, for family love and helping people, and I just kept quiet because he was my friend. I was so happy. So I did. I was a मौका भी नहीं था अपने लोगों मेरी बात करने का कि please explain me in detail and give me a presentation on this one. But I did not buy it. I did not buy. I'm being very honest. I want to be honest at this point because मैं इसकी वजह से बात बताऊँ. I said, all right, good. Dinner is, please have dinner. Then obviously time passed, वो करता रहा अपना चीजें करता रहा. ऐसा हम लोग मिलते रहे मुख्तलिफ because he was very busy in Aga Khan and so was I with my ventures. Finally उसका चीजें जब मिलनी शुरू हुई तो मुझे उसकी मुख्तलिफ बातें पता चलनी शुरू हुई. फैमिली में भी कुछ इस तरह के इंसिडेंट हुए मेरे कजन्स के, जो दूसरे ताएदार भाइयों के, उसने जिस तरह की हेल्प शुरू की, तो आई स्टार्टेड थिंकिंग कि यार ये तो शायद सच कह रहा था. तो मैं अपने आप को खुद ही कन्विंस, बिकॉज why I'm telling you all this, we have today become very materialistic. I'm not talking about you guys. I've never seen you, I've never talked to you, so you probably you could be disagree with me, but unfortunately the world, I have experience of 25 years of multinational companies and consultancy, and I'm not here to tell me who I am, but that would drive you to think why I'm saying this for Amir. Alhamdulillah, I have this luxury of having first-hand friends who are multi-millionaires and could not finish school. Okay. And at the same time, Alhamdulillah, I have direct relationships with people who are in atomic energy director generals. So there's a huge uh, mix of segment people. After seeing all this in 25 years, I tell you the truth. I I was in the last 1.5 months, my life has really sort of changed because of Amir. Because he uh, उसके साथ जो चीज़ें मैंने देखी और उसके बाद फिर मुझे अल्लाह तबारक व तआला ने जो गाइडेंस दी है, even if I try my best, I cannot put it in words. So every day I feel, who was this guy? Who was my brother? Who was it? Who was he, man? How? I mean, how can I? I'm not here to waste your time, please. I'm not here to waste your time. And I'm Allah is my witness. You must have seen Amir's things in different way, but and obviously वो सब उसकी तारीफें दुनिया इस वक्त he was a talk of the town in October because आप शायद हैरान होंगे नहीं होंगे, मैंने उस दौरान मेरे जितने क्लाइंट्स से चीज़ें मैं लोगों से मिला, 80% of the clients which I knew they said हाँ यार वो मुझे पता चला था वो आगा खान ने ना उस दिन ऐसा, तो मैंने घर आके फैमिली से कहा यार कि who was this guy, मतलब we used to have this discussion every second day, but the actual point which I want to come upon is that we remember him, we always remember him, inshallah. But smart person, I'm talking about myself. I have taken it like this, we should learn and follow the footsteps of people like these, because then it is really purposeful for us. If he was our friend, I just put it very simple. He was our friend. He was my brother. He was everybody, and we spent time with him. And Alhamdulillah, Summa Alhamdulillah, he have reached Jannatul Firdaus, inshallah ta'ala. Now he is over there. Now, if we people who are in dunya right now, and उससे हमने अगर चीजें सीखे उसके रास्ते पर जन्नत में अगर पहुंचने में हमें प्रॉब्लम हो, तो फिर आप you can imagine what was the purpose of having a relationship with Amir Sharif, right? That's the way I look at it. I'm not trying to, please do not say that I'm here using double-edged sword that between the lines. There is no between the lines. This is a direct line which I'm sharing it because I thought अच्छी बात मुझे बुजुर्गों ने बताई है, कोई पता हो तो शेयर कर लो, at least you would benefit out of it, and some people also would think on those lines. So this was something which we have to, whatever good trait we have picked up from Amir, we personally, socially, family, we should try to start it. If you are doing it, we should start, make it better. And I mean, he was a guy with so many, phenomenal attributes that are recommended by Quran from the life of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I mean, kindness, compassion, humbleness, honesty, sincerity, hardworking. I mean, it's going to go like, if someone disagrees with me, my number is with Dr. Asad. He or she can, tell me that, by the way, he was your brother, but, he wasn't that. I'm serious. On every of this word, I can give a detailed presentation with reference and examples from it. And such people make a place in everybody's heart. They are the treasure, admired and respected. And you can see this is very visible on the wall. So I'm just in the last 2-3 minutes. For me, Amir is my role model. I mean, surely he's among the most successful people who excel both in Deen and Dunya. I mean, that's the way I look at it. And the reason I told you that, my background is not to put an impression, just to tell you that I have also seen some part of the world and mixed with people. After that, I've come to this conclusion that he was it, man. He was it. He was it. So one last thing before I close this discussion. One very interesting thing before also, but I used to look up him like this, I was telling my mom and family that if Amir had such a personality that, in fact, if I were to make a group, of my choice, that who would never conflict with me, then Amir would be the captain of the team. he was amazing. I mean, I cannot imagine Amir arguing with someone. You know, you have some people, you know, you have this thing in your mind that, you know, this guy would respond to me in this way. Everybody has it, you know, but sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. Because वो आज की दुनिया में पता नहीं होता कौन क्या कह दे, अल्लाह माफ करे. So it's a different thing. But for some people, you can say no, not when he is not going to do that. No, never. कभी शायद उसने कर भी लिया हो, but you don't want to accept it. तो इस वाली बात पे. और एक बड़ी चीज जो मेरे एक मुझे हसरत रह गई, शायद उसी का इम्पैक्ट इतना ज्यादा है. एक जिंदगी की हसरत कह लें आमिर के साथ, वो ये रह गई, वो लास्ट थिंग यही है बड़ी सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट जो मैं आपको शेयर करनी थी. अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह, I was part of an international team which was developing a book on Sira. You know, it was a biography of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a very, you know, I mean, it is amazing. And after a couple of years in UK, Australia, Pakistan, and different parts of the world, now the book is complete. Last year it was complete and was printed and now in the market in this year. So I told Amir in last years, you know, when the book was getting ready, that, you know, he was so enthusiastic, you know, Asad bhai, please tell me when it's available so we can, you know, we can promote it and give it to our friends and spread the word around. And obviously I said yes. So I was so happy that, you know, we'll together will do it. And 10 days or a week before this incident, I told my mom, you know, and my family that, you know, our book is around and I'm so busy with my projects and falana, and, you know, this is bad. Amir told me that you should tell me and then we should start. I said we should contact him, you know. And this is only 1 week before that. So because this was the main project of my life, one of the main projects, this biography, the Sira book. So I was very enthusiastic, you know, someone like Amir is going to, you know, be my team. And that week went normally the way week, you know, passes by these days, like this. And I got this news. So उसका तो एक वो था obviously, और ये साथ साथ भी रह गया कि I could never tell him, you know, my brother, this book is ready. And he and his wife, both of them were very enthusiastic. MashaAllah, they have a very strong connection with Islam. Even the two kids, Yahya is just saying, I mean, Yahya and both Isa, both of them, you know, they are, I mean, their reflection, I mean, Amir ke waqai wo sage bete hain, waqai pe, the way they have structured their life, you know, I'm really impressed. So, वो मैं उससे कर नहीं सका. And
thank you, Asad, thank you. We're way over time.
Meeting.
Yeah, this meeting's going to, like, thank you very much for sharing those great anecdotes of Amir's. Mary, I think you should just wrap up.
Right. So no, thank you for that message and thank you for sharing those details with us. So I just wrap up with the message, since we're, you know, the year 2022 is about to end in a couple of days and, you know, we're moving on towards 2023. So again, you know, just a take home that, you know, life is a journey and everyone is on their individual journey. Each one of us is on our individual journey here. And if you feel, Nida, just like you asked, that you don't know where you're at or where you're headed, then you create your own. Move towards the new year, you know, with a chance, knowing that there's a chance for each one of us to create our own journey and give meaning to it and learn from mentors like Dr. Amir and such people. So if create your own journey, give meaning to it, it's okay. On that note, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Amir Sharif's family and children for joining us. Thank you for our folks who joined us online. Have a great evening and we'll see you next year.
Yeah,
Inshallah.
that's right. Inshallah, next year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.